In the summer of 1996, a small town in Georgia found itself at the center of a shocking crime that would capture the nation's attention. The case began when a young woman named Jennifer McKinney went missing. She was a well-known and beloved member of her community, just 20 years old and full of life dreams. Her family and friends immediately notified the police, who started searching for her right away. Over the next few days, the town filled with worry and fear as everyone hoped for her safe return. Jennifer's boyfriend, local resident and Army veteran, David, became a key figure in the investigation. He was deeply distraught over her disappearance, but as the days turned into weeks without any sign of Jennifer, police began to look closely at him. The atmosphere became tense. Whispers filled the town, and people wondered if someone they knew could be involved in such a terrible crime. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered disturbing clues that pointed toward David. A neighbor, who often heard their arguments, came forward as a key witness. He told police about fights between David and Jennifer that he had overheard, painting a troubling picture of their relationship. Law enforcement agencies moved swiftly, and David was ultimately arrested as a suspect. The case brought together the community, igniting passion and concern for justice as everyone waited for answers and closure. The legal journey was about to begin, setting the stage for a trial that would reveal deep truths and mystery, showcasing the delicate balance of love and betrayal. In the days following Jennifer McKinney's disappearance, the atmosphere in the small town of Milledgeville, Georgia, shifted dramatically. Law enforcement agencies initiated a full-scale investigation. Detectives and police officers worked tirelessly, determined to find answers for Jennifer's worried family and the anxious community. They began their efforts by interviewing David, her boyfriend, learning about their last moments together. The police gathered evidence from the areas where Jennifer was last seen. They searched parks, homes, and any place she might have visited. Officers handed out flyers everywhere, hoping someone would recognize her face and give new information. As they swept through neighborhoods, the concern for Jennifer grew larger, binding the community together. People held vigils, lighting candles and praying for her safe return. However, not everything was smooth in the early phase of the investigation. The media soon entered the scene, bringing excitement but also confusion. News reports spread across television screens and newspapers, showing pictures of Jennifer and David. Interviews with her family shared their heartache and hope. But as coverage continued, rumors began to swirl, sometimes fueled by speculation rather than facts. Some members of the town grew restless, feeling pressured to quickly identify a suspect or solution. Detectives faced challenges at every turn. While they gathered tapes from security cameras and examined reports from witnesses, leads seemed to dry up. One surprising twist came when police discovered that David had not only been at Jennifer's place but also had some unusual behaviors following her disappearance. Friends started questioning his alibi. Were they really a happy couple, or was there something else beneath the surface? As the investigations proceeded, investigators found a few crucial pieces of evidence. One fateful night, a neighbor reported seeing a suspicious vehicle near Jennifer's home just hours before she went missing. They hurried to track down the owner of the car, believing it held vital clues. With each step forward, quickly followed by doubts and delays, the detectives realized they were on a twisted path, but they refused to give up hope. Spurred by their compassion for Jennifer's family and the aching community, they focused on following every lead. However, as the investigation progressed, tensions rose. Analysts in the police department worked late into the night, comparing evidence and piecing together the timeline of events. Each day brought forth new challenges, igniting feelings of self-doubt among detectives. Were they doing enough? Were they even heading in the right direction? It was a heavy weight, but they had one clear goal: find Jennifer and restore peace to a town filled with uncertainty. The public continued watching closely, glued to their screens and radios for updates, and slowly, the investigation became a focal point of everyday conversations. The media's presence amplified the urgency, but it also raised the stakes, making detectives feel that they had to solve the case quickly. As frustrations grew and pressure mounted, whispers of doubt lingered in the air, both from the public and within the team of investigators. Even as the momentum of the case increased, They were reminded that the road ahead would be paved with unexpected twists and turns, testing their resolve and commitment to justice. Each moment danced between hope and fear, creating a longing for closure that echoed throughout the town. It felt as if the eyes of the whole community depended on them, pushing each detective to uncover the truth behind the mystery of Jennifer's disappearance. As days turned into weeks, the investigation into Jennifer McKinney's disappearance began to show signs of progress. Detectives followed leads from neighbors and eyewitnesses, hopeful that new evidence would finally bring answers. At first, it was incremental. A witness mentioned hearing words exchanged during an argument between Jennifer and David just before she vanished, giving officers clues about their relationship. Each small lead, while not yielding concrete evidence, brought a sense of hope and renewed determination to the law enforcement team. The pressure on the police department and the legal team mounted as the community continued to demand answers. Fundraisers were held to support efforts of the search, and social media buzzed with new theories and speculation from residents eager to protect their town. These conversations put a spotlight on investigators, making them work harder each day. They were ever aware of the community's hopes riding on their shoulders. Then, a break in the case finally emerged. A forensic expert analyzed Jennifer's phone records and was able to determine that her phone had sent several text messages during the night she went missing, including ones that never reached her friends. Of particular interest was a message that had been sent to David, which suggested she felt something was wrong. Police shifted their focus back to David. They were determined to uncover the truth about what happened. This discovery gave investigators new energy, bolstering their confidence that they were moving in the right direction. While the detectives built their case, investigative journalists were nearby, closely following the story. Reporters interviewed friends and family, sharing heartbreaking details about Jennifer's life, helping to create a relatable face to the tragedy. Their stories appeared on news channels, making the investigation even more well-known. However, this media coverage often had a double edge. On one hand, it put pressure on the police to act quickly, but it also helped rally public support for finding Jennifer and gave hope to her family. Law enforcement knew they had to proceed carefully. Each piece of evidence they gathered formed a jigsaw puzzle they were trying to complete under the watchful eyes of both the public and the media. They began holding press conferences to reassure the community, sharing updates while balancing the need for progress and the importance of not compromising the investigation. With rising public interest, every statement was heavily scrutinized. Yet, confidence began to grow within the investigative team. Each small success, such as tracking the last movements of Jennifer and the breakthroughs with her phone records, fueled their determination. The investigators delved deeper into David's background, uncovering details about his past that could offer insight into his mental state. They learned about a prior incident where he had displayed possessive behavior, leaving officers and the community puzzled and concerned. Through all these developments, the detectives maintained close communication with Jennifer's family. They sought to keep them informed while demonstrating they were actively working on the case. Connecting with the family helped bolster the investigators' motivation and gave them a reminder of what was truly important. Each piece of evidence brought them closer to the truth, and as progress continued, everyone began to feel a growing sense of hope, intertwined with the reality of the serious situation. With every small win, they felt stronger, more capable of tackling the challenges ahead. The specter of doubt began to shift, replaced by a sense of purpose that bound the team together in their quest for justice. The day of the trial arrived, bringing an electric atmosphere to the courtroom. People gathered outside, many supporting Jennifer's family, while others were curious about the proceedings. As the doors swung open, the air inside felt heavy with anticipation. The courtroom filled with serious faces, including the judge, the jury, the lawyers, and observers, as they prepared to dive into the intricate layers of this complex case. On one side sat the prosecution, determined to present a clear narrative of what they believed had happened to Jennifer. They were ready to showcase how David's actions led to a tragic outcome. The lead prosecutor stood confidently and outlined the evidence collected: the text messages, eyewitness accounts, and David's past behavior, suggesting he had signs of jealousy and control. Each word was carefully chosen to paint a picture of David's involvement. He focused on why he thought the jury should believe that David had a motive to harm Jennifer and that he was a dangerous person. In contrast, the defense team approached with a different strategy. They aimed to create doubt about every piece of evidence the prosecution presented. With a calm demeanor, David's attorney questioned the reliability of the witnesses. Each testimony, no matter how sincere, was carefully dissected. The defense highlighted that no physical evidence pointed directly to David, suggesting that everything could be mere coincidence. Their objective was clear: to convince the jury of David's innocence and leave them unsure about the prosecution's claims. During the trial, key moments arose that sent waves of tension through the crowded room. One standout testimony came from David's friend, who argued that he and David were going fishing the day after Jennifer went missing. He described David's shock and concern when he heard the news of her disappearance. The prosecutor countered this narrative with aggressive cross-examination, asking how David had seemed calm before the news spread. This exchange revealed cracks in the friend's loyalty and raised questions in the minds of the jurors. As the witnesses took the stand, emotions ran high. Jennifer's parents spoke of their daughter's loving spirit. They shared cherished memories that made everyone emotional. Their unwavering belief in justice brought tears to many eyes, including the jurors. Their pain added weight to the prosecution's efforts to connect Jennifer's innocence with the dangers posed by David. But the defense was not idle. They aimed to highlight the potential for other explanations regarding her disappearance, asserting that the world was full of unexplained mysteries. Another intense moment arose during the cross-examination of David himself. His voice quivered as he relayed his version of events, how he had loved Jennifer and the anguish he felt with her disappearance. The prosecutor pressed him about inconsistencies in his story, making it feel like a pressure cooker. Under scrutiny, David's demeanor changed, and the jury could sense the tension vibrate in the room. Desperation and frustration painted his responses. With every witness brought in and questioned, new pieces of the story came together and fell apart. The trial transformed into a battleground of opinions and emotions, where every side aimed to convince the jury. Observers noted that each decision by the attorneys carried monumental weight. One convincing moment could tip the balance toward guilt or innocence. As the days unfolded, the chance of a verdict loomed larger, wrapping everyone in a blanket of suspense that neither side could predict. The defending team continued to search for cracks in the prosecution's case, believing that the tiniest hint of doubt could save David. For the prosecution, the objective remained clear: to seek justice for Jennifer, honoring her memory and ensuring that the truth, whatever it may be, would stand strong before the eyes of the law. Each move was significant, holding the weight of responsibility for the entire community, and the anticipation continued to mount, leading everyone to wonder how it would end. The courtroom, an arena of both passion and pain, awaited its final word. As the trial progressed into its pivotal stages, tension in the courtroom reached new heights. Every day had been filled with arguments and testimonies, but everyone could feel that this trial was about to reveal something significant. The prosecution prepared to introduce what they believed was their most powerful piece of evidence, a crucial witness who could bring dramatic change to the trial's direction. The witness, a local woman named Sarah, stepped into the courtroom, her face a mix of determination and distress. She had been close to Jennifer in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, and her relationship with both Jennifer and David carried a vital understanding of their interactions. With butterflies in her stomach, Sarah took her seat on the witness stand, and the atmosphere grew electric. Emotions hovered in the air as the jury watched closely, waiting for her words to unfurl. The lead prosecutor calmly approached Sarah, beginning with gentle questions about her friendship with Jennifer and the events surrounding her disappearance. The courtroom hung on every answer. Sarah shared memories of laughing and sharing dreams with Jennifer, creating a heartfelt connection to the young woman who was now a tragic figure. As she spoke about the joy Jennifer brought to so many, the weight of loss hung over the room. Then the prosecutor shifted gears. In a firm tone, he asked Sarah if she had noticed any changes in Jennifer's behavior leading up to her disappearance. Here, a moment of silence passed. Taking a deep breath, Sarah explained that she had sensed a shift in Jennifer, noting that she often looked uneasy around David. Her witness's heartfelt delivery resonated deeply with those listening, creating ripples of understanding in the jury's hearts. This was not merely a lack of evidence against David. It was a foreshadowing of fear. The defense was visibly rattled. They stepped forward to cross-examine Sarah, attempting to undermine her credibility by pointing out that perceptions of fear could be misconstrued. They questioned her memories, trying to sow doubt about her interpretation of events. Yet Sarah remained firm. She was chosen not for her opinions, but from a place of friendship and knowledge. Each response she gave reinforced her strength, and her conviction resonated throughout the room. Then came a pivotal moment. As the defense tried to dismantle her story, Sarah took a pause and said something unexpected, a revelation sparked by a sudden thought. She recounted an incident where David had shouted during a casual gathering and how startled Jennifer had looked afterward. It was like she didn't want to show her fear, but I could see it in her eyes, Sarah confessed, her voice trembling but firm. The sincerity in her voice caused many to share a heavy breath, deepening the silence that settled over the courtroom. The jury could see then that this wasn't merely a tale of love or jealousy. It was also filled with fear and sorrow. Sarah's testimony elaborated layers of complexity to their understanding. Her words became an emotional anchor that connected Jennifer's humanity with the cold reality of the fear she faced. This was the turning point that the prosecution had desperately needed. As the trial unfolded around the pivotal moment, both sides recognized the increased stakes intertwining around them. The prosecution felt emboldened, believing they could sway the jury towards understanding the side of fear Jennifer experienced. Meanwhile, the defense faced the daunting task of salvaging their case against the growing tide of compelling evidence. With every word spoken that day, the courtroom transitioned from a place of mere legal battles to one intertwined with deep emotional currents. Every juror, every person present was beginning to feel the weight of what they were choosing to believe. At that moment, the reality of the case transcended into something more profound, creating a clearer image of the fight for truth and justice that now unfolded within those walls. The tension crackled palpably, leaving everyone wondering how the conclusion would come together. As the trial neared its conclusion, the courtroom was charged with an energy that felt almost electric. It was a moment loaded with tension as both sides prepared their closing arguments. The lead defense attorney stood, bringing his papers together, and faced the jury. He spoke with a controlled urgency, seeking to dismantle the evidence the prosecution had put forth. The defense believed that reasonable doubt was their strongest card, and they intended to play it well. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, throughout this trial, you have heard many versions of what may have happened before Jennifer's disappearance. The attorney addressed them earnestly. He paced slowly along the front of the jury box, making eye contact with each juror as he continued to build his argument. But remember, in our justice system, one is considered innocent until proven guilty. There is no hard evidence linking David to any crime. Speculation and emotions do not equal guilt. He emphasized this point as he tried to shake any lingering belief that David could have harmed Jennifer. With his voice steady, he painted a picture of doubt. He reminded the jury of the witness testimonies via questioning their reliability, stressing that opinions about relationships do not reflect true facts. The defense's strategy was clear. They were pressing the notion that emotions and history could cloud judgment. They argued that Jennifer's struggles were not unique and should not directly implicate David. As they made their case, restless movements alertly rippled through the courtroom. Everyone felt the weight of the moment. After the defense's closing statement, the lead prosecutor took his position in front once more. Shifting tones, he drove home his argument with passionate intensity. "Think about Jennifer," he urged the jury. "A bright young woman with dreams, silenced too soon. There is a reason we have gathered here, to seek justice for a life cut short. While the defense wants to blur the lines with speculation, we have brought forward solid, credible evidence that points unequivocally towards David's involvement." The prosecutor talked about the voices of Jennifer's family and friends who would never have a chance to tell their own stories again. His powerful narrative resonated inside the courtroom, fueling the emotions that had built up over the entire trial. The climax of those statements played on the jurors' hearts, reminding them of why they were there and the importance of the justice they needed to offer. After final arguments had been presented, the jury was sent to deliberate, a decisive moment that lingered in the air like a cauldron of uncertainty. With every member of the courtroom aware that the next decision could alter lives, shoulders rose and fell dramatically with held breaths. The atmosphere vibrated with conflicting wishes of hope and fear, a mix of emotions creating silent cries throughout the space. Jennifer's family remained steadfast, hands clasped tightly together, praying silently for justice. In the enclosed deliberation room, jurors discussed, questioned, and tended to the evidence they had reviewed for days. For them, it was not just about the criminal law. This case was a reflection of their values, the principles of justice they so deeply cared about. They knew the impact their decision would carry, not only on the lives involved but also throughout the community. Behind the closed doors, some cracked jokes to alleviate the tension, while others remained silent, lost in the moral weight of their duty. Outside, the observers anxiously awaited word. Family members, friends, and concerned citizens shared stories of their own experiences of loss, hoping that a sense of justice would emerge from chaos. The trial had become a pivotal moment not just for Jennifer's family but for the community tightly knit over shared emotions and grief. As hours dragged on during the jury's deliberation, everyone felt entwined in the anticipation and uncertainty enveloping that room. No matter the outcome, lives would forever be changed. The trial had left an indelible mark that would ripple through the community as they waited with bated breath, reflecting on the themes of justice, love, and loss echoed continually throughout this devastating ordeal. The verdict was looming, and it whispered promises of resolution while also hinting at new beginnings. After the jury reached its verdict, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted dramatically. A thick tension hung in the air as the judge called the court to order. The room fell silent, each person holding their breath in anticipation of the next moment. When the verdict was finally announced, it was like a bolt of lightning had struck. Shockwaves traveled through the crowd. The victim's family, gathered on one side, reacted instantaneously. Tearful cries almost harmonized with sighs of relief. They felt burdens lifted with the verdict, an answer to the heartbreaking questions that had plagued them for months. Jennifer's mother clasped her hands together, her eyes shimmering with hope, while her father buried his face in his hands, allowing raw emotions to spill forth. They had waited so long for justice. For them, this moment was more than just a legal conclusion. It represented the love and dreams held for their daughter, now forever lost. As they processed the verdict, disbelief mixed with gratitude felt bittersweet. They had faced a devastating journey, one where the fear had transformed their lives, but the struggle was over. Yet, part of them remained haunted, knowing nothing would bring Jennifer back. On the other side of the courtroom, David sat, stone-faced. He felt the gravity of the decision weighing heavily upon him. The verdict felt surreal, almost as if it were happening to someone else. Yet deep down, reality was starting to sink in. The weight of a lifetime's judgment felt suffocating as whispers bubbled up from the public. Friends and supporters who once stood by him were hit with uncertainty, unsure of what to believe anymore. David seemed lost, and confusion tangled with regret became palpable. Outside the courtroom, throngs of people gathered, feeling the ripple effects of what had just unfolded inside. Shouts of victory mingled with cries of despair formed a cacophony of emotions. This case had captured the public's attention for months, igniting debates about love, obsession, and the darker sides of relationships. Social media buzzed with congratulatory messages for the prosecution and frustrated commentary from those unhappy with the verdict. People were divided, emphasizing the complexities of human relationships and the legacies of grief, highlighting how deeply this case resonated. The media did not miss a beat either. Cameras rolled, capturing every angle of the aftermath as reporters flooded the scene. They conducted impromptu interviews with courthouse observers, amplifying the narrative and extending its reach. This trial became more than a story of crime. It represented moral conflicts and the search for justice, shining a spotlight on a complex legal system. Coverage included conversations about the weaknesses and strengths of law enforcement's approach, along with calls for improvements in how similar cases could be handled in the future. Every detail recounted echoed loudly in newspapers, on television, and online. Conversations that couldn't just fade away. Within the law enforcement community, officers reflected on the emotional toll of the investigation. The case served as a wake-up call regarding the need to better understand relationship dynamics, especially when dealing with potential domestic violence. It highlighted the importance of training for officers responding to domestic disputes to help them recognize signs earlier on. There were discussions about how devastating it could be for individuals within the community when such relationships turn harmful, raising awareness that prevention and education were essential moving forward. The broader implications bubbled underneath this tumultuous experience. Many began to question the legal framework. Had there been flaws? Were there procedures that could be improved to avoid such extreme situations? As conversations swirled, the community started discussing potential changes to the laws surrounding protective orders and domestic issues, seeking real change to ensure that no one else would find themselves in such a painful situation. In the days following the trial, deep reflections took place among the families and the community. Grief and a need for healing tore through the fabric of the town. Bonds were formed among those affected by the loss, and they communicated through shared experiences. People offered support to one another, slowly creating a renewed sense of connection in response to the tragedy. This event wouldn't just be a sad chapter in their town's history. It was becoming a moment for change, leaving lasting impressions that would inspire growth and healing for everyone involved. The echoes of these events would remain woven into the community's journey. In the weeks following the verdict, life began to shift for everyone connected to the heartbreaking case of Jennifer McKinney. For David, the reality began settling in deeply. As he faced his conviction, certain aspects of life changed completely. The judge decided on the sentence, and as he stood before the court, the words felt earth-shattering. He had been found guilty, and now he was headed to prison. In that moment, he grappled with emotions of despair, fear, and uncertainty. His future seemed bleak and isolated. Prison would be a significant transition, far from the life he once knew. In prison, David faced consequences that were more than just incarceration. Each day loomed larger as he adjusted to an environment that felt foreign and difficult to navigate. Friendships from life outside faded as they couldn't survive the long distance and reality. Most people around him didn't care about his past or the case that had defined his life. While in prison, he faced stigmas, as many labeled him a murderer, shaping his days with isolation. Guilt and regret swirled in his mind as he contemplated how he would communicate his journey and struggles if ever given a second chance. On the other hand, for Jennifer's family, the verdict extended a sense of closure, yet healing remained a slow journey. They found themselves immersed in a world changed forever, filled with reminiscences of Jennifer shared in quiet moments. Her brothers often spoke about their deep sorrow, but also their determination to share her memory positively. They engaged with local advocacy groups focused on violence awareness. This way, they could help prevent future tragedies echoing their experience or raise the voice of those who could not speak for themselves. They became advocates, ensuring Jennifer's legacy lived on while educating their community about the issues surrounding domestic violence and the signs that no one should ignore. Communities responded by engaging in discussions on how to better support those facing similar situations. Various public meetings emerged, connecting voices wanting to make a difference for others in precarious relationships. People shared their stories of hardship or addiction, providentists of solace, but also lessons on toxicity and real love. It was inspiring for many to see beyond the pain, transforming it into alliances aimed at personal safety for all. This legal story reverberated beyond court walls. It transformed the lives of many. Schools initiated programs to educate young people about their emotions, boundaries, and the meaning of healthy relationships. Parents began to engage with their children in conversations about love, respect, and accountability. Many people realized the importance of being aware in both their friendships and relationships, understanding that ignorance could lead to unnecessary scars. Not only did the families bear the weight of the case, but also the ripple effect touched friends and coworkers. Conversations about mental health blossomed as individuals started speaking openly about their challenges and stressors. Close communities of support emerged within local businesses, church groups, and other gatherings. For some, these tough discussions were groundbreaking, convincing them to seek counseling to process their feelings. Every person connected to either side of the case found pathways to healing. The media coverage extended its influence as stories surrounding the case continued to circulate. News articles transformed into platforms for local heroes who spoke out against domestic violence. Public figures, community leaders, and even minor celebrities began drawing attention to the issues raised in the case, using their voices to advocate change and agency. It became increasingly clear that conversations born from a heartbreaking loss could foster palpable change. David's situation, while difficult, served as a reminder to all involved about the consequences of choices and actions. The stark truth surrounded transformation, where lost lives stirred a passionate drive for prevention. Every aspect of life, from criminal justice to community advocacy, reminded individuals that understanding love, boundaries, and violence could shape futures differently. Time moved on, the town slowly journeying toward healing, responding to the various changes that emerged. The wake of the trial inspired many like a beacon of hope. With every connection and conversation sparked through this case, they built foundations for stronger communities, characterized by respect, understanding, and awareness, ensuring they wouldn't let history repeat itself. As time passed after the trial, the once raw emotions began to take on a different texture, transforming into a sense of resolve for everyone involved. The case of Jennifer McKinney gradually reshaped not only individual lives but also the entire community, leaving lasting impressions and significant consequences in its wake. For Jennifer's family, the journey moved slowly toward healing. In their quest to honor her memory, they found purpose in advocacy. They became involved with organizations focused on raising awareness of domestic violence. Speaking at events, they shared Jennifer's story courageously, reminding others that relationships should be safe and built on trust. Their efforts resonated within the community, inspiring people to discuss their experiences and emphasizing the need for recognition of unhealthy patterns. Organizations working to support victims of violence witnessed an increase in support and resources as the family called on greater community engagement. The legal system also felt the impact of the trial. In the aftermath, many officials and law enforcement began reviewing existing protocols for handling domestic violence cases, leading to training reflecting the complexities uncovered during the proceedings. More focus was given to understanding the dynamics of abuse, especially in high-stress situations. The investigation emphasized that by training officers to identify patterns and warning signs, they could better protect vulnerable individuals before a situation escalated into tragedy. Policies evolved with the core goal of enhancing victim support and keeping communities safer. Meanwhile, the media began to approach crime stories with a new sense of responsibility. Inspired by the emotional narratives that unfolded during the trial, they focused on the humanity present in such tragedies rather than sensationalizing the stories for viewership. Reporters began working with domestic violence advocacy groups, striving to provide coverage highlighting both the respect for victims' journeys and the lessons society could learn from each case. They acknowledged the influence of their positions, understanding they could help shape public perception of these critical issues. As for David, life behind bars became a space for reflection and transformation. While he faced the consequences of his actions, he took advantage of rehabilitation programs offered in prison. Engaging in therapeutic sessions, attending classes, and working on bettering himself offered moments of insight. He started to grasp the importance of recognizing emotional and relational issues that had plagued him in his past. This self-reflection brought a new understanding of the damage his behaviors could cause, paving the way for growth, even in such unkind circumstances. He began reaching out in writing and began correspondence with groups focused on healing and mental health, showing that even amid despair, there was room for change. Over time, he held on to hope that one day, he could share his journey outside prison walls. Every lesson learned amidst the strife could influence positive change should he be granted a second chance. The broader community began to embrace a stronger accountability for attitudes regarding relationships and emotional health. Workshops aimed at educating young people about respect in personal interactions flourished. The legacy of Jennifer's tragic story lived on as schools initiated programs stressing open conversations about boundaries, consent, and the signs of unhealthy dynamics. In the years that followed, change rippled across various sectors. More scholarships were established in Jennifer's name to help young adults pursue their dreams, ensuring her spirit touched future generations. This tribute recognized potential lost amid tragedy, showing the world that loss could spark profound transformation for others. Overall, the profound outcomes of this case reshaped not only those who lived it but strengthened the community fabric. Lives intertwined, motivations grew clearer, and encouragement thrived amid sorrow. This reflective journey from heartbreak had, indeed, imparted growth and optimism for the future. A future where the legacy of Jennifer's life might protect others and inspire hope anew. The case did not just conclude. It ignited an ongoing dialogue shaped significantly by resilience, awareness, and renewed commitments to safety within relationships. The power of advocacy and the importance of understanding had taken root, promising to reshape perception well beyond this narrative.